Yeah, it's great to be with you. Today, Mo and I will speak about the interconnected scholarly ecosystem and persistent identifiers. And let's start with an introduction of open science, because persistent identifiers do not exist in a vacuum, but rather they are a core component of the research ecosystem. And the UNESCO launched a recommendation on open science in 2021. And they defined 4 pillars for open science: open scientific knowledge, open dialogue with other knowledge systems, open engagement, and very important, open science infrastructure. And before I continue, just to let you know that during this presentation, we will use the terms open science and open research indistinctly, but obviously we support a broad inclusion of research practices. So yeah, we support open research. And the UNESCO defines open research infrastructure as shared research infrastructures that are needed to support open research and to serve the needs of different communities. Open research infrastructures are usually built by nonprofit organizations and are governed, driven, and sustained by the research community to increase transparency, equity, and to better serve the interest of the research community and of the public good. And in the UNESCO Open Science recommendation, one of the critical components of open science infrastructure are persistent identifiers. And also to mention the principles of open scholarly infrastructure, also known as POSI by the acronym. This is a community initiative developed in 2015 that proposes a set of guidelines around governance, sustainability, and technical assurance by which organizations that operate scholarly infrastructure should function. Currently, many organizations have committed to this principle, including DataCite, the organization where we work. And now, yes, let's talk about persistent identifiers. To begin with what is a persistent identifier? A persistent identifier is a unique alphanumeric string that refers to a digital resource. And here you can see the string, and this example of a DOI. And this string always points or redirects to a representation of the object, for example, in this example, a data set. And very important about persistent identifiers, the persistent identifier is a string, and it's usually connected to an open metadata record. This is very important because metadata offers additional context for understanding how the research has been made. And some persistent identifiers for individuals that you may know are the ORCID identifiers. And you can see some examples here. And on the metadata, you can add additional information such as other variations or translations of the name. And the ORCID identifiers can be connected to a lot of information, for example, to works. And this is an example where you can see work connected to an ORCID record via Zenodo and DataCite. Research organizations also need persistent identifiers to be uniquely identified and connected. And these are some examples from ROR. ROR is the Research Organization Registry. And it provides an open identifier for organizations in research. And last but not least, identifiers for research objects. And one of the most common ones, and the one we're going to talk about today, are DOIs, stands for Digital Object Identifier. And on the DOI metadata, you can see a lot of additional information. In this case, this is a DOI for a data set, and it can be connected to all the contributors, their affiliations, and it can include other identifiers such as ORCID IDs. And now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Mo.
Thanks, Gabby. So yeah, let's start with an introduction about DataCite and who we are. So we are a global community that shares a common interest. As Gabby highlighted, usually the open research infrastructure providers are non-for-profit organizations. So DataCite is also one of the non-profit organizations, and we are registered in Hanover, Germany since the year 2009. So as a global community, we share a common interest to ensure that all research outputs and the resources are openly available and connected with each other. Why we want to achieve this goal? Because we want to maximize the reusability of all of these research outputs and the resources to help in advancing knowledge across and between disciplines. So as a community, we make research more effective. How we do that, as Gabby highlighted in her definition, and when she was talking about persistent identifiers and their associated metadata, and that associated metadata will usually be open. So we use the metadata information about research outputs to connect it together. So we support the creation of the digital object identifiers, the DOIs, for all research outputs and the resources, from samples and images to data sets and preprints. And on top of that, we also built integrated services, as we will explain later, to improve research workflows and also facilitate the discoverability and reusability, because we really understand the value and the importance for academic researchers to make all of the research outputs visible and discoverable as well. Next slide. So this is a screenshot from the current DataCite community, and as you can see, we have more than 3,200 repositories connected with us and using DataCite infrastructure to register DOIs for all the research outputs and the resources. And it's really important to highlight that the word repository in the DataCite community refers to any system that the institution or the center will use to publish and disseminate all the research outputs. It can refer to a general repository, it can refer to a specialized data repository, it can refer to any system that has been developed internally within an organization to disseminate various research outputs. We have members from 55 countries. So far, we have issued and supported like more than 60 million DOIs, and overall we have 1,400 organizations within the DataCite community. So DataCite DOIs are suitable for a wide range of research outputs. The first one, or the first type, is the materials that are associated with a specific research process, such as research datasets, models, collections, software script that has been written while conducting a specific research process. All of these research types can be supported with DataCite DOIs. We also support the gray literature, and here we refer to electronic thesis and dissertation, conference proceeding, preprints as well, the initial version of the article before sending it to the journal or the publisher. The preprint version can get a DataCite DOI as well, technical standard, project, all of these valuable research outputs that usually the primary point of publication will be the institutional repository. As you can see, this is a screenshot from the DataCite registry, and the 1,400 organizations that are currently part of our community are registering a wide range of research outputs. We have the word data in our name, and this is how we started as an initiative to support citations and tracking citations for data sets, but we have grown since then. So we can now support more than 30 research types, from physical object to images to preprints to dissertation reports, output management plan, books, videos, various research outputs, and the resources. So yeah, I included here a couple of examples from our community. So as we can see, this is a screenshot from one of our members in Thailand. They are registering, they have like a national data repository, and they are doing a fantastic work by registering DOIs in Thai language. So they provide us with the metadata in the Thai language. Here we can see the title of the data set in Thai language. We can see the name of the creator, the contributor, the publishers, and all these valuable details about the publication. We can see it in their own language. Another example also at the right side from our one of our members from Singapore, where they are publishing a report and they are also assigning a DOI for that report. And then we have a doctoral thesis also with a DOI. And then here we have a software script that has been written while conducting a specific research process. The software script has been deposited into a public repository and has been assigned a DOI, because at the end of the day, that software script that has contributed to conduct this research process is part of one of the valuable research outputs or variable research outcomes from this research process. So it's really, really important to make it visible and discoverable and share it also openly with the community. And then we have also another example for a figure that has been produced after conducting a specific research process and has been deposited publicly and shared also with the community by assigning a DOI to it. So, what is the added value for assigning DOIs to all research outputs and the resources? So, let's start with research data sets, one of the most valuable research outputs. So, assigning DOIs and integrating DOIs with data sets will really help in making your research data sets aligned with the FAIR principles. FAIR principles refer to four main principles with the main goal of maximizing the reusability of research data sets. So, for example, DataCite DOIs represent that unique persistent identifier that is centrally managed by the International DOI Foundation, which is DataCite founding member for this organization. So this means that integrating your dataset with a DOI will help in making your dataset more findable. It's easy to find your dataset, and also your metadata information about this dataset will be assigned using an open global unique identifier. Same thing also in increasing and enhancing the accessibility of your research datasets. When you assign a DOI, the DOI has the ability, as we will see in a demo later, to retrieve metadata information. So when you register a DOI for a dataset, you will provide us with a valuable metadata information about this research dataset. This metadata, we will make it open and it can be retrieved across different systems. Also, again, it's aligned with the interoperability feature, which highlights the ability for the dataset to work and to be workable across different or accessible and shared across different system, which is really, really important. And of course, the ultimate goal of the FAIR principles is to increase the reusability of all of these research data sets. So rich metadata information that explain and highlight your data set, assigning it with a DOI will really, really enhance the reusability aspect as well. So, but in general, for all other research outputs and the resources, as we saw, we talked about DOIs for dissertation, we talked about DOIs for reports, we talked about DOIs for samples and the images. So DOIs in general will help in improving the visibility and discoverability of research outputs. They will also enhance the accessibility So the ability for your research outputs to be accessible in the context of research data, as we discussed, they will make your research data sets aligned with the FAIR principles. And also by obtaining DOI, you are getting a recognition. So for all of these research outputs, so for example, when you go to a conference and share your abstract and your presentation with the community, and once you go back, you deposit all of these research outputs, the abstract, the presentation, into your institutional repository, get DOIs for these two outputs. Your institutional repository is connected with your ORCID record, as Gabby will explain later how this connection can work. Then what you will see is your ORCID record will be updated with these two valuable contributions, the presentation that you delivered at this conference and the abstract also that you shared with the community. So by doing so, you are getting recognition for all your contributions, not only your journal articles or your publications. And of course, increasing and improving visibility will help in leading to more citations and recognition for your work. And overall, connecting an institutional repository or a general repository with DOIs will really help in connecting all the outputs disseminated through this repository with the global ecosystem, and will help also in increasing the impact of your institution, because part of the metadata information about your research outputs that will be published within your repository is your affiliation, and part of the affiliation will be your institution name, and also the research organization registry, or the ROR ID for your organization. And as Gabby highlighted in the beginning, the UNESCO recommendation for open science recommended integrating different PIDs in research workflows, because this is really aligned with the open research principles. So this is a quick example from regarding the point that we mentioned about the power of DOIs and the value of retrieving the metadata information. So if we click on this URL, please. And if we copy this example DOI and paste it here, and let's say that we want to, I think number one is missing. Yeah. Thank you. And if we click format, so what is happening right now is we are trying to retrieve the metadata information about this identifier. This identifier has been assigned to a specific research output, and now we can see all the metadata information that has been registered for this output. We can see all the authors' names, we can see the publication year, we can see the publication title, and it seems to be part of a conference that happened or was hosted in the United Kingdom. And we can see the publication year for the conference as well. We can see the series title where this one was hosted, and at the end we can see the identifier. So imagine getting DOIs for all your research outputs, for your thesis, for your reports, for your presentations, and attaching all of these outputs with open metadata information, including information about yourself, your organization, about also the titles and the publication year for all of these research outputs. So retrieving DOI metadata is one of the key features that really help in improving the visibility and discoverability for your outputs compared to using other identifiers. And as we mentioned in the beginning, so DataCite is not only a DOI registration agency, but we also help in increasing the discoverability and visibility for these research outputs. A good example is our platform, DataCite Commons, that we developed. So within DataCite Commons, we are hosting metadata information about all the 60 million DOIs that we registered, along with also some DOIs that are coming from Crossref. In particular, DOIs for journal articles that have cited data sets or other research outputs, that these research outputs, they have DataCite DOIs. I hope I explained it in the right way and you got it. Within Commons as well, we have an integration with ORCID API to display information about the contributors, the authors who contributed to generate and produce these research outputs. We have also integration with ROR API to display information about the organizations, whether the organization who are these contributors are affiliated with, or the organization that also funded these research outputs. On top of that, we have also some repositories that are discoverable within Commons, mainly the repositories that are coming from the RE3 data registry for research data. And then the goal is to build, using all of these different bids, to build that relationship and the connections between all of these different entities. So we want to understand the relationship between the organization using the ROR and the various research outputs that these organizations are producing, software, data sets, publications, and also understand the relationship between the contributors or the authors who produced all of these research outputs and the funders as well, the funders who funded all of these research projects. In order to do that, the bids or persistent identifiers in general play a very, very important role in making this bid graph happen and understanding also that relationship between all of these different connections. Without adopting ORCID IDs or DOIs for all research outputs or ROR IDs for research organization, we won't be able to have these connections and understand or create this graph. So within DataCite Commons, researchers can look for various research outputs like dataset, as you can see in this example, and we can see the representation about the metadata that has been registered for this dataset. We can see the title of the dataset, so we can see the contributors who created or contributed to create this dataset. We can see also an abstract short summary about this dataset. We can see also when that DOI was registered. And on top of that, we can see the citation because this dataset in this example has been cited in another journal article. So again, tracking citation to datasets using the digital object identifier, because the dataset itself was deposited into a data repository and then got a DOI, and then the journal article that cited this dataset has a DOI as well. So using these two identifiers for different research outputs, we are able to track that relationship between the journal article and the dataset as well. And within Commons also, we have a dashboard for institutions. So we can see in this example, this is one of our DataCite consortium organization in Africa. In Kenya in particular, we can see the total number of works. We can see the total number of citations. We can see also the total number of views and downloads. And as you can see, we can see also different or other identifiers here as well. And then within the dashboard also, we are showing some graphics about their publications, work types, and licenses as well. And all of this information are openly available for everyone to explore. And yeah, now I will hand over back to Gabby.
Thanks, Mo. And we also wanted to talk about the benefits persistent identifiers and their metadata have for you researchers. So we brought some interesting information to power your research process. First one is the DataCite and ORCID auto update. This is a very interesting feature. So if you have an ORCID ID, which we truly hope you have to make your research not only more identifiable, but also connected and discoverable, you can benefit for automatic connection of all your works that have a DataCite DOI. So for this, what you need to do is the following. You log in to your ORCID record, and then you go to the works section. On the works, there's a menu that's called Add. And if you click there, you have many options. And one of them is to search and link. And when you click on search and link, you will see many different options. One of them is DataCite. So once you select DataCite, you will be displayed with an authorization message asking you to authorize DataCite to write information about works into your ORCID record. And you can see here an example of DataCite profiles where you need to authorize this. And once you authorize, DataCite collects permission to write on your ORCID record. And then every time there's a DOI registered that includes your ORCID ID in the metadata. For example, if you submit a manuscript to a publisher and the publisher registers a DOI and your ORCID ID is included, you will be able to get that information straight away in your ORCID record. And you can see here, this is the kind of notification I get from ORCID, and they say that, yeah, I have a new work on my ORCID record. DataCite has made changes to your ORCID record under works, and they have added this work title, and you can see on my ORCID record, this is the work that has been added, and you can see the metadata, the year, the contributors, with the ORCID IDs, a short description, date it was added, and very important, the source of the information is DataCite, so not the researcher themselves, but an external source, and this adds a lot of value and trust to your ORCID record. This is another example from my ORCID record, and you can see this is a work that has been added via Zenodo. This was uploaded originally in Zenodo, and you can see here the source of DataCite and other 2 sources. So in total, 3 sources have added this information to my ORCID record. And there are many other tools in the research ecosystem that are already integrating open scholarly infrastructure, such as persistent identifiers and their metadata. And this is very important because they promote a virtuous cycle, making research more transparent, more reproducible, and more fair. So one of them is the MP tool. So before you start your research, you can create a data management plan. You can upload it on DMP, and you can create, if you register on the tool, you will obtain a DOI for your data management plan. Similarly, you can go to protocols.io and you can register an experiment protocol. And in COST, Center for Open Science, they also offer tools for you to upload a pre-registration or a preprint and get a DOI for it. Similarly, in Figshare, Figshare and Zenodo and Dryad are repositories that allow researchers to upload the research works and obtain a DOI for it. And Archive, a preprint server, but there's also many other preprint servers that allow you to upload your preprints and obtain a DOI for it. And the more identifiers and metadata and tools that use these identifiers and these metadata, you get more discoverability for your research. And the more institutions that integrate these tools into their workflows, as Mo was saying, this also helps interoperability and automation. With interoperability comes automation so that you don't need to enter information about your research every time, but rather you connect your ORCID ID, and then in your ORCID ID, all the information about your works and activities, for example, connected through these tools, is already there without you having to enter that information. And there's also many service providers, software service providers that offer tools for institutions that also integrate DOIs and metadata and other persistent identifiers, such as the PKP, the Public Knowledge Project, that includes Open Journal System, which is a very widely used publication system, and Open Monograph Press, and Open Preprint systems. DSpace is a very wide known and wide use repository system. And there's also organizations that offer open source data repositories, such as Invenio RDM and the Dataverse project. And persistent identifiers, we consider them the building blocks of research infrastructure, because not only they identify different entities across the research ecosystem, but they help connect these entities, which is very important in an open and transparent way, thanks to metadata. And we all know that in reality, research is interconnected. The value that persistent identifiers and metadata add is that they help those connections and those relations visible, providing more context about research. And this is an example from a research project that actually DataCite is leading, called Implementing Fair Workflows. And thanks to the identifiers and the metadata, we're able to track all these connections. So these projects are registered to pre-registration, reports, data sets, output management plan, text, one journal article, 2 software elements involved. And you can also see, thanks to the persistent identifiers and the metadata, the publication year of all these outputs and activities, the work types, the licenses, and also you can see who contributed to these activities. And now I'll hand over to Mo again.
Thanks, Gabby. So regarding DataCite membership, so as I mentioned earlier, we are a non-profit organization. So one of our primary ways for the organization to keep being sustainable is through our membership fees. So we have 2 main options for membership. The first one is a direct member. So this is when a university will submit a request to join the DataCite community as a direct member. And in this particular case, they can connect 1 or 2, or even if they have 3 repositories or more with DataCite infrastructure, and then they can start registering DOIs for all the research outputs and the resources. Then the second option that we have, and this is like a more sustainable option, is the consortium option. So this can happen when a group of like-minded institutions or a national center in a country, they want to start a DataCite DOI consortium in their region or in their country. So in this case, we have a DataCite consortium lead, and then each organization or each institution will join the consortium as a consortium organization. And in this case, each consortium organization, they will also get the chance to connect all the repositories with DataCite infrastructure and start registering DOIs through DataCite. And here we have the full details about this model. Let us know and feel free to connect with us if you are interested to know more about the consortium model. And in terms of improving equity and inclusion in persistent identifier infrastructure, we do understand that in some communities, there are some financial barriers that are preventing these communities from benefiting from the open persistent identifier infrastructure. So in order to help and contribute to overcoming this issue, DataCite launched a global access fund last year. It was part of a broader program that we also launched last year called the DataCite Global Access Program. So within the Global Access Fund, we launched several funding opportunities to support communities that are currently underrepresented in the global open science infrastructure. Mainly, we are talking about institutions in Africa, Middle East, Asia, and Latin America. So the first round was really successful. We received more than 185 applications, and we ended up awarding 12 organizations from the countries that you can see on the screen, Lebanon to Mexico to Brazil, and we are working with all of these organizations within this year. So yeah, so again, we are repeating the same fund next year. So this year we have 2024 Global Access Fund, and all of these projects will run through the course of 2025. We are hosting a webinar to respond to the community questions and queries about this webinar. So please, if you want to know more about this funding opportunity, you may attend yourself, or you may share it with your librarian or your repository manager at your institution. And we will share also the registration link for this webinar in the chat box. So if you want to attend or share the webinar with your connection, this is appreciated. Yeah, and at the end, we just want to say that implementing different persistent identifiers, not only DOIs, not only ORCID IDs, not only ROR IDs, but implementing all persistent identifiers in research workflows will really help in enhancing the visibility and accessibility of all your research outputs within the open research framework as well. And this will really help in building the trust and the transparency and collaboration also in the broader research ecosystem, as Gabby also highlighted that in her presentation when she was talking about building trust in your ORCID record by showing who is the source for this information about your publication. The source is not the researcher, the source is this registration agency. Yeah, and at the end, we want to thank Global Young Academy for giving us this opportunity. This is a DataCite social media platform. If you have any questions, feel free to reach us through emails, and these are our social media accounts. Feel free to follow us and engage with us.
That was amazing. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, please raise your hand and you can take the opportunity to ask some questions. In the meantime, I'll get started. I'll warm you up. One question that I have is about the archiving versus the minting of DOIs, right? So I actually had a conversation with our data curator for the first time, where I asked her, is the DOI linked to, you know, a guarantee that the data exists? And she actually told me that it doesn't. So oftentimes when a DOI turns 10 years old, the data is no longer required to be archived, because usually that's the promise. And so my question is, what happens then? Like, is there a plan? Because it seems like this is a very forward-looking and very complete plan, and this seems like it should create a crisis. So I was wondering your thoughts on this.
Thank you, Stephanie. So what DataCite does is provide the infrastructure to make research outputs identifiable. So we provide the identifiers, the APIs, but we do not host any content. We work with research organizations or any institutions that work with research, and they are responsible for the redirect URI or the landing page. So we provide a DOI string and then it's the institution that's responsible for keeping that landing page where the data is hosted or the preprint or the journal article up to date. What we do to address this issue is we provide a service to our members called Link Checker. We do tests on those landing pages. Our members are assigning to the or associating to the DOIs. And if there's a 404 error, then the member will see an error and they can know to update the page. So we are not responsible for hosting the data. And in the same way, we provide identifiers and metadata. The metadata is by default openly available through a CC0 license. That being said, we do have members that have closed data because in the medical or health science or psychological disciplines, there's a lot of data that cannot be publicly accessible. So we do not work directly with managing or archiving the content.
Right. But the interesting thing is that you actually know how many of these links actually go defunct after a certain amount of time, right? And so I was wondering if you have any information on this, if you do reporting. I mean, there was we had a session in June with the UNESCO Chair for Open Science, and they were they're really trying to find new indicators of open science. And I think that this kind of information might be super important in the development of, open science indicators going forward. It's not just whether you made the data available now, but whether long-term it remains available.
Yes, so what we do is we perform these randomized tests on the redirect your eyes. So I don't have a figure to share with you, but there have been many studies recently around this issue. And yes, we also understand that long-term archival is an issue that we need to address as a community, and that it also has to do with resources, right? Like this is an issue that needs resources and funding, and sustainability and open science and open infrastructure always go hand in hand.
I have one last follow-up question since, there's no question so far. So do you report to the UNESCO Open Science Initiative? Because you mentioned it at the beginning. Is there a connection between these?
So DataCite was not participating in the working group that came up with the recommendations, but I think there were representatives from other organizations. Most recently, the UNESCO is chairing an initiative called OSMI, Open Science Monitoring Initiative.
That's the one.
And there we participated in the group that came up with the principles. So in that initiative, we're more involved.
Very cool, very cool. It's nice to see how the links happen. Yeah. Yeah, Tasha.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for coming and sharing. And I don't really have any questions right now, but it is interesting, to see the indicator part kind of growing and thinking about how this fits into that. So it's good that you've been involved in that process.
I have one last question. So I'm a microbial ecologist. I work a lot with molecular data, and I noticed that NCBI doesn't seem to be linked. I don't know if it is linked, and then I there just wasn't space, but so these are the sequence data archives. And so I'm wondering if they are, or also the European, so these are the American ones, but there's some from Europe and Japan.
So you're asking if NCBI is using DOIs?
No, well, so they don't. And this is my question. So they use accession numbers, which is a huge problem. And it also makes it hard to link the sequence data to publications. This is a huge, huge problem. So I was wondering, since you guys have Figshare, you do link to Figshare, so that's a form of data archiving. Is there no link to NCBI? And if so, is there a reason for this, or is there a plan to link them?
Is this the organization you're referring to? National Center of Biotechnology and Information in the States? Okay, so yes, they are a DataCite member, and yeah, they have connected almost 200 works, and yeah, here you can see the publication years and the work types, and yeah, here you can also see more information. Some of our members use many different identifiers like accession numbers or handles. So the adoption is up to the institution and their policy. But what I can tell you is that in the US specifically, there's a lot of adoption because of NIH and NSF mandates. And yeah, similarly in Europe, there's also a lot of recommendations about DataCite DOIs and ORCID IDs.
Yeah, so I actually, one of the things I work on is linking sequence data to publications, just because it creates such a headache for us, because that information is not available, and DataCite does this. So I think we're actually having conversations with the European sequence database, and I might bring this up because it seems like a huge gap in an easily solvable issue where the infrastructure is already available.
Yeah, so the key element to link the data set to a publication or to any other output is to register a DOI for it. And then there's a related identifier field in the metadata, and there you can connect all the other outputs. And yeah, that's very important. We are here talking about DataCite. We know that there are other identifiers, but the key advantage of DataCite DOIs is that the metadata is open and standardized versus other identifiers that only provide the identifiers but don't provide a standardized metadata record, or the metadata is not always openly available.
What if the DOI is not the important part because there is a DOI already, but the link is what's most important?
Yes, we believe both things are important, of course.
So is it possible to use DataCite simply to link a DOI that exists to data that already exists, right? Because this is exactly the gap. The papers are available, the sequence data is available, but it's impossible to link them. So it's impossible to refer to, let's say, the primary literature on the data.
Right. So it's possible to register DOIs for any outputs, and we have many of our members that actually join to register DOIs for their outputs, and then to update the metadata and to establish those connections you mentioned. And We didn't mention this in our presentation, but might be of interest because we're talking about this, is that DataCite also leads the Make Data Count initiative, which is an initiative established to promote responsible data metrics and practices, and hopefully increase data sharing and also reward data sharing. And as part of that project, we are building a data citation corpus, which is an aggregated corpus of all the information about citations to research data. And you can see this is a pilot. This is a 3-year project, so this ends end of 2025. But here you can see, data citations increase over time. And in this project, we're working with DOIs and with accession numbers. You can see citation counts by publishers, by subject, by repository, and a lot of information. As part of our mission, we're also working to put all those pieces together.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And Mo, I don't know if you would like to add anything.
No, I think that's it. Just regarding the first point that you guys were discussing regarding the archiving and long-term archiving plans within the publishing community and scholarly publishers in particular. So they adopted this mandatory policy. So each publisher and each journal in particular, they should have their own long-term archiving plans. And now there are infrastructure that such as Portico and Deplox who are providing these services for the publishing community. So maybe also the communities around the data management and data repositories can develop a similar approach also and start to have these longer-term archiving policies for their repositories.
Yeah, I hope so. All right. Well, I think we don't have any questions, but I want to thank you again. And I'll be sending you an email in a little bit. And hopefully we will make the recording available soon. Thank you again.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.